Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, is proposing that government should use the excess of the $100 million in the stabilisation fund to finance the free senior high school policy. The committee is again of the view that proceeds from the mining of gold and other minerals could also be used to sustainably finance the project.
Leadership of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, made the proposal at a workshop to solicit views on how to finance government's free SHS policy. The committee lauded government for earmarking 25.6 billion cedis, representing 35% of GDP to the education sector. It suggested to government to consider using proceeds from the stabilization fund, which was capped at $100 million, to finance the program. It again proposed to government to leverage resources from the mining sector to roll out the program. Chairman of PIAC, Joseph Winfo, underscored the relevance of rolling out the free SHS policy.
There are so many citizens who might be your mates whom you know that without that sort of assistance or educational grants and so on wouldn't have attained the positions that they've attained. So it is important.
A member of PIAC, Dr. Steve Mantiao, charged government to restructure funds transferred into the GET fund.
All right, so we want to find out really the stabilization fund, what it is it about, and then also how can we consider using the excess of it for the funding of the free senior high school policy, which has been proposed by government. Let's look at this short information about the stabilization fund. First of all, it is supposed to be like the backup for the budget allocations or for government finance or spending in case we have shortfalls from the revenue expected from petroleum. The Ghana Stabilization Fund has also been capped at $100 million. That is one other fact we know, and this is consistent with Section 23(3) of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act of 2011. Again, as of May 2014, we had in excess of $176 million. That amount had been realized. So if it had been capped at $100 million, at least we know that some $76 million excess had come on, or has been, we can say that as the excess that had been realized. And also $60 million, which is about 50 million Ghana cedis, was lodged into the newly established contingency fund, and the difference of $159 million is being used for debt management and debt repayment. And these are some of the considerations that the stabilization fund seem to have realized. There are some excess monies that are coming on what government had originally set up or what had been agreed on through the parliamentary stage up until now. Now, the excess on it, PIAC is advising or suggesting that we use that money to fund free senior high school, the policy that has been promised by the current administration, the New Patriotic Party government, led by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. We have in the studio one of the executives of PIAC, and we want to put a few questions to him regarding why they think that it is in good order if we put the excess of the PIAC, the excess of the stabilization fund into the free senior high school policy. Dr. Steve Mantiao, not new to us. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. He's an executive member of PIAC, and we want to ask of you, first of all, this means that there is the belief in the free senior high school policy, for which reason there are various suggestions as to how we can fund it. No?
Yeah, I don't think there is any Ghanaian today who does not believe in creating or improving access to secondary school education for our children. I think the concern today is more about how we are able to sustain it, in terms of the financing. And this is why PIAC offered a platform to deliberate on ways in which we can leverage financial resources from other sectors of the economy, but particularly also the petroleum sector, to be able to sustain the financing of free SHS. The
sustainability question is what seems to have come up every now and then. If the cap for the stabilization fund is $100 million, what excess are we looking at? How much excess are we assured of every year, for which reason that if we channel that into free senior high school, it will be able to run it at least for the first few years?
Well, I think it's important to let viewers understand the framework for allocating petroleum revenues. The Petroleum Revenue Management Act of 2011, Act 815, as amended, provides that out of the total revenue generated in the petroleum sector, we allocate a maximum of 55% to GNPC. Currently, because it's a maximum ceiling, we're currently doing 30%. Now, what is left is to be allocated between the budget and the petroleum funds. 70% goes into the budget, and 30% goes into the petroleum funds. That 30% is allocated in the ratio of 21% to the stabilization fund and 9% to the heritage fund. So at every time in passing, whatever we get, the net petroleum revenue, we allocate 21% to a stabilization fund. But there's a certain irrationality or inconsistency, if you may wish to call it so, in this whole arrangement, because in the same breath, the law has allowed the Minister of Finance some discretion to cap the amount of money that is accumulated in the stabilization fund at any time in passing. And I recall at one time we capped it around 250 million, it came down to 200 million, and now it's around 100 million. Now, for me, that kind of discretion in a way defeats the purpose of establishing the stabilization fund, which is to accumulate enough revenues in there whenever the price is good, so that in years or times when we are unable to realize projected revenues, we can go in there, take something to cushion the budget. So if you cap it so low, and so you don't accumulate enough, and we happen to go through a prolonged phase of price decline, that 100 million will not take you very far.
But within that 2011 and now, the capping, which was at 100 million, where have the excesses been placed? Do we know?
The amendment to the PRMA provided that the excess is distributed between the contingency fund, which is a fund established under the Constitution, and then the other portion goes into a sinking fund. But you see, the purpose of a sinking fund really is to service our loan repayments. But it also serves as a guarantee, because if you are going to lend money to Ghana, and you know we have such a fund, it gives you a certain confidence that we are willing and will be able to pay for the loan. But another way to do that is also to build a very strong and resilient economy. If your economy is strong, it generates that kind of confidence on the part of lenders, and so you don't need a sinking fund.
Now, let's try to put it in perspective for those who may just be joining us. We know that I get a sense PIAC may be having some contradiction here, because if already you say the capping of the 100 million is low, and you're saying that, well, the excesses that may come as a result of that should be channeled to fund the free senior high school, where do we draw the fine line or the balance here? Because it would mean that you're advocating for the cap to actually be increased, so that whatever goes in there is kept there for future eventualities. But at what point can we say that this is enough? Now let's put it here.
Yeah, we need to find a very good balance. Currently, the 100 million ceiling is too low.
It's low.
So we are advocating to raise it a little bit. But after you've raised it, if the price pick up and the volumes increase, and you are able to accumulate beyond the cap, we want the excess not to go into loan servicing, but to go into free SHS financing. So we are trying to deal with two problems. One is to enable the stabilization fund to play the stabilization function that is meant to play. But we anticipate also that as more fields come on stream, more revenues will be generated. And if the prices pick up, even the better. So at some time to come, we are likely to generate enough. But I do not believe, because the setting up of the sinking fund, in my view, feeds into a certain appetite for borrowing, and therefore increases the public debt stock. So I'm saying that take away the appetite and make sure your revenue collection agencies are efficient
And I believe that they can mobilize enough resources, more than they are doing currently, to finance our development needs. Okay. And so let's take away that sinking fund and let's channel the money into financing free SHS.
SHS. All right. So thank you. We'll leave it here. But certainly, I'm sure a lot more proposals are coming up. And the one that government finally decides or agrees to use